When the United States Capitol was breached on January 6th, United States Congressman Markwayne Mullin didn't run for cover or hide in a bunker like so many representatives. He went to the front line. When Biden's disastrous pullout of Afghanistan blew up in his face, and American citizens were left behind to face the Taliban by themselves, Congressman Mullin teamed up with others and went into harm's way himself to help get Americans out of Afghanistan. When asked by the media, "What are you trying to do, steal the spotlight?" Mullin's reply was, "Look, I'm an American, and we don't leave other Americans behind to fend for themselves. And I would do it again, the very same thing tomorrow if I had to. No regrets for trying to rescue American lives." Mullin has been a fighter from the start, standing with Trump, standing against the woke agenda, fighting the fringe left and their attempted communist takeover of our nation. Congressman Mullin has been fighting to protect our faith, our families, and our freedom. Markwayne Mullin, running for United States Senate, hosted by city elders.
What I appreciate about Markwayne is before he did the rescue mission that you just saw in the video, he spent time with his family, including his children, and he said, there is a more than 50% probability I will not come home alive from this rescue mission. Odds are I won't come home. And they understood the seriousness and the need for the mission because the president and the State Department did not want that rescue to take place. And they fought him every step of the way. He said they were a much bigger problem than the Taliban. But at the end of the day, he brought more than 300 Americans out of Afghanistan. And so I want you to welcome to the stage today one of the bravest men in this room, Congressman Markwayne Mullin.
Thank you, guys. I'm actually, I'd be a hermit. I'm very uncomfortable in these situations. I appreciate the video. It was wonderful. Jesse, I know you had people put that together. I was like, my goodness, that's all I need to say. I just dropped the mic moment, right? And Bob, wonderful introduction. And what you said was true. Of course, my son Jim, he didn't say Donald J. Trump. He said Trump. And he had this smile on his face when he said it. And everybody started busting up laughing. I was like, hey, we raise our kids right. What can I say? I want to point out two people or three people in here. And one, we didn't recognize our veterans. Can all of our veterans stand up for me, please? Please. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All of our Vietnam veterans, I want to say thank you and welcome home. I mean that sincerely. All of our veterans, I want to say thank you too, because this wouldn't take place if it wasn't for you all. If you didn't go do your job and do it well, I wouldn't be standing up here in front of you. I wouldn't be running for office. Laymeyer wouldn't be running for office. No one else will here be running for office because we'd be living in a socialist country. And that's where they're trying to take us right now. The Democrats have unmasked themselves, right? They've unmasked themselves. They're no longer hiding behind it. Reagan warned us of communism. Communism became a bad name, and so they resurfaced themselves as socialist. And then socialists turned into socialism, and they embrace socialism right now. I'm not kidding. When they walk around every Wednesday or Thursday, they walk around with a 3-inch button on their pocket. There's 98 of them. These are your representatives and your senators that walk around with a button on their chest that says Socialist Democrat Party. And they have rallies outside the east front steps of the Capitol with a banner that will stretch, I don't know, not quite to the wall, but close to the wall. And it says, I call on the Socialist Democrats to act now. Our veterans have fought against that, and it's our time to make sure we continue that fight, right? Second of all, we got law enforcement all around here, and unfortunately, they're heavier than normal because of an unfortunate incident. And I mean unfortunate. You can't argue with crazy, and you can't regulate crazy. Doesn't happen. You can't do it. You can have all the laws you want, but you can't regulate someone that's mentally ill, someone that has ill intentions. You can't do that. Of course, that's what they're going to make this whole election about coming up is gun control. I just recently, literally right before I came in here today, I did a national interview on ABC, and they were asking me about it, trying to get me to back into it, and about, don't you think there should be common sense? Don't you think this and don't you think that? And I said, hold on a second. I said, our founding, not our founding fathers, our Constitution was very clear. They put a full send in the Second Amendment. What I mean by full send, they said, shall not be infringed, full stop. Shall not be infringed. When I say full sin, it's because it's the only place they put it in the Constitution that said, shall not be infringed. Now, we are a government by the people, for the people. So if we want the Second Amendment changed, that means we have a convention of the states. And the people get to make that decision. Making laws to do it was not part of the Constitution. Full stop. But we're here with law enforcement. It's all around here. And it's honestly embarrassing. When I walked in, I felt like I was walking, which I appreciate them, guys. I appreciate all you guys do. But I felt weird because, truthfully, that used to be my job. There's a lot more about my bio that I don't talk about because, honestly, my wife doesn't like me talking about it either. It's as my wife says, sometimes it might have been my selfish time in my life because I was willing to leave the family over and over again, knowing that there's a better chance than not that I'm not going to come back. And I was doing special assignments outside of DOD, and it's just hard for me to explain about it. But these guys that are here today, the law enforcement surround, they leave their family every single day willing to die before any of us go home. They're willing to make sure that every one of us go home, and I guarantee you their family loves them as much as my family loves me. We don't show them enough gratitude. I know we do in this room, but we don't. If we did, there wouldn't be a single meal that's ever purchased by a law enforcement agency. Now, I buy their meals a lot, too, just because I want them to not give me a ticket for driving so fast. Everybody has to have motivation. My dad told me when I was 16, either slow down, outrun them, or make friends with them. And I decided slowing down wasn't an option. Outrunning didn't work out so well for me. And so I decided I'd make friends with them. Making jokes by that was serious, actually. That was a true conversation. But our law enforcement here, they love us, and we need to make sure we love on them too, okay? And then I spend a lot of time on the road lately. My life is busy. I'm all over the place. Last week alone, I drove 3,000 miles. My office is my truck. We run a lean and mean operation. Our numbers are phenomenal. We're working hard. I tell people I've never been the smartest person in any room I walked into, but I guarantee you I'll outwork everybody in that room. And since I'm doing that, I miss a lot of family time. And I tell you guys, my priorities are God, family, and everybody else. Okay? God, family, and everybody else. If you mess up on those two things, nothing else matters. But my family, like every decision we make in our family, they're all in. Like me going to Afghanistan, I was honest with my family that I was told them that I probably am not coming back. And I was so proud of I don't like talking about Afghanistan because I get emotional still because we lost people there too, and it's hard. I get that we celebrate the people we got out, but we lost some people, and it's tough. But I'm straightforward with my family when I talk about it. And so I was straightforward with them when we went to Afghanistan too. And I told them what the likability of it. And I was so proud of my sons, but especially this one that I'm about ready to introduce because I haven't seen him since Sunday, which doesn't seem like a long time because I've been gone longer than that. But I didn't expect to see him. And he surprised me by being here. Andrew, would you stand up? I can tell you, if this job doesn't bring humility to you guys, I don't know what is. Because people say, what is the biggest things you learned since you've been in office? And I said, I learned how to take a deep breath, and I found a new definition of humility. It should humble everybody for doing this. Because if you think you can do anything yourself, you're crazy. You got the best ideas in the world. If you can't get people to agree with you, you can't get anything done in Congress. I'm sorry. It takes 217 people to agree with you to get it across the House, and it's going to take 59 to agree with you in the Senate. It's just a matter of fact. It's the way our founding fathers set it up because they didn't want one person to rule the country. So you have to work. And I get back to this. Andrew, when we sat down and we talked, I called one person because I didn't want anybody to ever know we was going to Afghanistan. I didn't want anybody to know. I'm very private about that part of my life. I didn't want anybody to know we were going. And I called one person to let him know, and that was going to be our next Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. And when I called him and told him I was going to go, his one question was, he says, do you got good life insurance? Because he knew what I was getting into, but he also knows me because we're friends and he knows me. And he goes, I guess it's not going to do you good to talk about it. And I says, no. He says, you know this is over for you, right? And I said, what? He says, even if you do come back home alive, which I don't believe you will, your political career is going to be ruined. And I said, I don't care. Good. Because we have a saying around the family, you do the right thing the first time. Period. You do the right thing the first time. If you do the right thing the first time, you don't have to worry about redoing it. We make decisions in our family based on 4 things. I call it the 4 keys to success: honesty, hard work, respectful, and responsible. Those are the 4 keys to success. I don't care what you're doing in life. If you're being honest about it and you're out working everybody about it and you're being respectful, you're not willing to step on somebody or accuse something or do things that aren't ethical, and you're being responsible with the God-given talents that the Lord's given you, then you'll be successful. Even if you aren't successful in your endeavors, you'll still be successful because you're solid in your core and you're always going to stand up straight, right? So when I was raising the kids, I taught them this, and I still teach them that. Now I'm experimenting with kids, by the way. I've got 6 of them. We're experimenting every day, trying to figure out if we got this thing right or not. I don't know. We'll find out when they have kids, I guess. I may be really warping them, but I've always believed to just be honest and be straightforward and just give them the information they need. And one thing my dad taught me is you don't walk past a problem. If you have the capability of doing it, you don't walk past a problem. If you see me walking and there's a piece of trash blowing around, I'll stand by and I'll stop, go pick it up and throw it in the trash because I can do that, right? And so you do the right thing the first time, and you never walk past something that you're willing to do, that you're able to do yourself. And so when I was breaking it down for my kids and I was telling them what was going on, it was emotional, right? Because I didn't sugarcoat them. I told them I'm probably not coming home. And my wife is not upset, but she wasn't thrilled by the idea until she started realizing that I got good life insurance and she's going to pick a much taller, handsome guy than me. And I thought, my Lord, it is true. You can marry money faster than you can earn it. My wife and I have been together since 3rd grade. We've been married 25 years this June 14th. And so we're married because she put up with me. I would have divorced me 24 years, 6 months ago. But she has put up with me. But she wanted me to be honest with the boys. And so I was sharing them with them. And of course, she was emotional because I kid by that, but we're best friends. My wife and I are truly best friends. We aren't roommates. We love each other. We love spending time together. It hurts us to be apart. We truly love each other. And our best days are when we spend them together. I'd rather have a good day arguing with her and apologizing over and over again than be separated with her one day. I'm serious. That's just the way I feel. I love being with my wife, and she will tell you the same. So I was talking to the boys about this, and I was just laying it out to them. And Andrew, who is emotional, all my boys were emotional. We got 3 boys and 3 girls. I tell everybody we got 3 that we didn't have any choice in, and 3 we chose. So we have 3 biological and 3 adopted. You choose which one it is that we love the most. We love them all the same. But I was talking to all the boys, and Andrew looked over at me and says, "Dad, can you make a difference?" I said, "Yeah, I believe I can." He says, "Then you got to go." He shed that through his tears. Love the heart. Love the heart. Honestly, I walked away from there and I was like, well, I got one right. Right? And then to see him show up here today, he's still getting emotional. And you don't do that. You look over there at him and he's already got tears in his eyes. it was a tough decision for us, but it was honestly the right thing to do. And when I got into that, I really didn't think. I'm sorry about getting emotional here, guys. I really didn't think that I was going to come back. So it was honestly one of those things that when we got in, it almost became like, you know, when you're around a situation like that, which I've been in those situations before, you kind of get in those situations where it becomes funny. You just kind of laugh because all of us are in the same boat. And I'm the last man on this team, right? I'm the lowest guy on the totem pole on this whole team. And I want to share this story, which I wasn't even going to talk about Afghanistan, but I'm going to be as fast about it as I can. And then I want to circle back about what the reason why I'm going to ask you to do two things. I'm going to ask you, one, I'm going to ask you to be involved. And two, I'm going to ask you to run for office. Now listen to me. We can complain about a lot of things, but I have a saying, you're never going to change anything you're willing to tolerate. Okay? A lot of people can say, I don't have time. Guys, my wife and I have multiple businesses, hundreds of employees, and 6 kids. And we've collected 3 since I've been in office. We started with 3. I promise you, our plate is full. But if we really want to make a difference, then we got to have leaders running. We got to have leaders getting involved. We got to have leaders doing this. So I thank every single body here that's willing to put your name on the ballot, because it's the most humbling and the hardest thing you do. But let me share this story as quick as I can with Afghanistan. I got a phone call. It wasn't something I was wanting to do. I got a phone call from somebody. If I mentioned his name, he knew my past, but if I mentioned his name, everybody here would know his name. And he says, Markwayne, do you still have assets in Afghanistan? And I said, well, sir, I don't know. He goes, do you or don't you, essentially? And I was like, sir, I don't know. Let me make some phone calls. I hadn't been to Afghanistan since the beginning of 2013, or actually middle of 2013. I hadn't been overseas in one of these types of things that I used to do since 2016. Yes, if you do the math on those, I was in office on both occasions. I hadn't taken a full contract since 2010. I said, I don't know. I said, let me do some checking. And I said, why, sir? And he says, I got 20 Americans that are stuck at the American University in Kabul. Now, at the time, the Taliban was allowing people to go out and bring their people back. So the Germans, the French, and the Brits were going out and getting their people and bringing them back. But when President Biden, when Secretary Blinken, when General McKenzie got up and said that every American that they want to get out, they can get to the airport, they lied. And when I say they lied is because there was 3 checkpoints from 0 to 100 meters out. And each checkpoint cost each person $500 to $1,000 to go through. Now, what's the difference in the prices? 500 people were young children and elderly. 1,000 was if you're a marrying age or fighting age. And marrying age for a kid and fighting age was if you could touch your ear. Think about your kids. What age is that? I got one kid that's 18. He still can't touch his ear, but whatever. He's vertically challenged. But and then for a female, if you were still of use, you're $1,000. If you're a male, you probably got beat to a pulp. There's 3 checkpoints. There's no ATM. There's no financial sector open. If you're not getting through, and now if you were with us, you could come through. Now we couldn't, but if you're with military, they would drive you on through. The Germans and the Brits and the French, they were able to drive on through and get their citizens, but we wasn't. Why? Because of failure of leadership. It's what happens when you got someone weak in the White House. It's what happens when you appoint people for political appointees but not actual leaders. Because you're more worried about diversity than you are actually about leaders. There's a problem there. So when they were asked that, they said, we got to have help getting these people out. And I said, well, sir, let me see. And so I started making some phone calls, and it came right back to me from someone I called and said, Markwayne, we do have assets there. We can get people, but we need you to sponsor a flight. We need a government sponsor. We need a government sponsor. We need someone to sponsor this flight. And I said, what do you mean? They said, it needs to be an agency that sponsors it. And I said, okay, fine. He said, any agency, it doesn't matter, because the only flights are allowed in is military flights. And so once we have a government sponsor, then any personal plane can get a military call sign to be able to come in with a tail number. And I says, okay, well, we're good with that. Let's do it. And so I started calling around, and I got an agency that would do it. And the agency said, we'll do it only if we have a congressional sponsorship. I said, what's congressional sponsorship? And they said it would take a member of Congress. I said, I'll be a Huckleberry. I'm good. I'm your guy. Wasn't planning on going. I told my wife when I got back in 2016, I was done. I mean, I put my gun up and didn't even clean it. I was done. I was done. And I told her I wasn't going to go again. Still wasn't planning on going. Fast forward 12 hours later, the list grew from 20 and we had 180 AMSETs. AMSETs are Americans. We had 120 or 180 AMSETs now. Same time the American government is sitting there telling you, or the agent, not the American government, because we represent the government, this administration was sitting there telling the American people that everybody wanted out could get out, but our number had already grew to 180, and a lot of them grown from agencies, alphabet agencies, that were giving us people that they needed us to help get out. They knew the truth too. In literally 12 hours from the time they heard we were coming, it had grew from 20 to 180. And then the agency backed out. And so the only way the flight was going is if I went on it. That's when things got really weird for me. I had a conversation with my wife. It went over like you would expect it with any wife. When I said I'm going to leave and I'm probably not going to come back and you're going to get life insurance, she was like, right on, see you later. Didn't actually go that way. But that was kind of the conversation. And I find myself from the time I had talked to my boys, the time I was on a plane was about 10 hours, 12 hours tops. I think it was about 10. Andrew was about 10? I don't know. It was quick. I mean, I pretty much left. My last time over, typically when we were doing that stuff, you have a prep time, you have training. You know what you're doing. You got specific things. You go. I mean, the last time I went over, we trained for 10 months before I went. And this was just blow things off. Let's go. I hope this kit still fits. I gained weight since last time. Let's go. And I get myself on a plane and I'm going. And I'm working with a bunch of guys. And I look around and go, whoa, I'm the least of everybody here. This is a phenomenal crowd. How did this happen? Only the Lord, right? I mean, I'm really working with true American heroes. I'm the least of this whole group. And yet, people said we were trying to sneak in, but I'm going to tell you, I was on the phone with General McKenzie's office almost the whole time. They knew we were coming. They were working with us. They gave us a deck downtime of a 037, or 0837, of a certain date that we were supposed to land. They told us we had to be spun around and out in 30 minutes. We were working with an agency that was going to go pick up some people that was waiting at gates, that we were going to pull them and pluck them, and then the agency that was going to help us had 9 assets they wanted us to fly back out. They gave us Hangar 9 to start staging people at Hangar 9. I mean, this was very detailed. They gave us Hangar 9 because by the time we actually had wheels up, we were at 230 Americans wanting out. So we're going to have to stage people. We had a flight. We talked to General McKenzie and his chief of staff, and they said you had to be out. You got to be out by dark on August 30. You got to be out. Because after that, we're blowing stuff up and we're going to completely vacate on the 31st. Remember, they ended up vacating on the 30th. Why did they vacate on the 30th? Because a little thing called a hurricane that was coming in. And they were trying to change the news cycle because it was bad publicity for the president. And they thought they could get out of there by the 30th, then they'd be fine. That's why they left all this equipment behind. They didn't blow up anything. They personally told me they were going to blow up everything. But they were wanting, that hurricane was so important. They wanted to change the message so quick. And so they had a picture of General Donahue walking on the back of a C-35 in night vision goggles and a picture taken through night vision. I'm going to tell you that night that place was lit up like a Christmas tree. Wow. It was lit up like a Christmas tree. The Taliban had already been in there. They had already been handing over control of them. I know this personally. It was nothing but a picture that they wanted so they could deceive the American people. The reason why they didn't want the Americans out, the reason why the biggest fight we had on our hands was not the Taliban, and we learned to work with them because they had this thing called an infidel tax. If you read the Quran, which I wouldn't suggest it, but it's not a bad thing to do, they will charge you an infidel tax. And that was the infidel tax to the checkpoints. There were 16 checkpoints between Kabul and Mazar Sharif alone, and that was only halfway across the country. The first country we was trying to get to was Tajikistan. 16, do the math on that one and the money it cost. We couldn't run in buses. We had to run in taxis, and we had over 40 taxis that we had put together to start running in these what we called rat lines. The rat lines was considered, and I'm not trying to take away a historical fact. I'm trying to just make it where you can understand what a rat line is. A rat line is essentially an underground railroad. So we got to get people out, and you learn when you can move. And we figured out the best time for us to run is 2 to 5 a.m. We figured that was the easiest time to get through the checkpoints because they like to sleep too, and sometimes you could drive straight through them. We figured out how to set up safe houses and cash houses. Cash is stash houses, but we use the word cash where we would put supplies. We'd put diapers. We'd put baby formula. We would put MREs. We'd put gasoline, water. And then you had safe houses that you constantly had to move. And we had a whole network of this going on. The whole time we were in communication with the State Department. In fact, the morning of the 30th, when we were trying to get a 3-year-old girl out who had severe leg infections, we'd been trying to get her out since the 28th. We couldn't get them to open the gate because of the explosion that took place at Abbey Gate, which they'll tell you that we lost 13 Marines. What they won't tell you is we lost a 2-year-old boy that was an American, his mother, and her father-in-law. We know that they were there because when they wouldn't let us land and they peeled us out, she was waiting at that gate for us to pick her up to go out on that plane in 30 minutes. And before we landed in Tbilisi, the gate had got blown up. And we never heard from her again. CNN reported, said that Taliban, that these 3 were killed in a rocket strike. There was no rockets fired by the Taliban. They are lying to the American people, deceiving the American people because they had an agenda to draw. This little girl, the morning of the 30th that we were trying to get out, turns around and says, or the State Department says, "Mr. Mullin, do you got another way to get them out? Do you got another way to get them out?" I said, "Oh my God, you're leaving Americans behind." I said, "We're sorry, do you got another way to get them out?" That little girl, we get her all the way to Tajikistan, which is 311 miles across a war-torn country in a war zone, which isn't 311 miles across here. It takes several days to get her across. On our way there, I called the ambassador of Tajikistan, Ambassador Parmagine from the United States. I gave him a heads up, we're coming. I said, "Here's the deal, sir. They're going to be at the gate at Panjshir Bridge. It's called the Freedom Bridge, Panjshir Bridge. They're going to get there roughly at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's a 6-hour drive from where I fly in to where you're going to be at. I'm going to fly in. I'm going to meet you. We're going to need some assistance. One, what's my limit of bringing in cash?" They said, "There's no limit bringing in. It's just what you can take out." I said, "No problem. We're not planning on taking him out because by the time they get here, we got to hand that driver cash again to be able to pay his way back through." I said, "And then we're going to need assistance with a car service because every embassy has a car service that's already pre-vetted. It's pretty important when you're in those countries, you have a vetted car service." He said, "No problem, we'll help you. What time are you going to get here?" I said, "I should land down. I should be decked down at 0200. And he goes, "Okay." I said, "Will you call me back and let me know everything's ready?" He said, I said, "We're going to need medical assistance because the girl's in bad medical shape." An hour before we take off, which we're not flying commercial, as you can imagine, I hadn't heard from him, and I called him, and his words was to me, he says, "Mr. Mullin, I'm sorry, but Washington told me not to assist you in any way." Kid you not, guys. The whole part about them saying I threatened an ambassador isn't actually accurate. What I said, "You said what?" And this is recorded, by the way. They said, "You said what?" And he said, "I was told by Washington not to assist you in any way." And I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm trying to get Americans out. I'm trying to do your all's job. And you're telling me you can't assist me? This is an American. This isn't a refugee. This is an American." He says, "Sorry." I said, "Who told you that?" He says, "I can't tell you." And I said, "You either tell me now or when I get in my official capacity, you will tell me." Conversation ended. We tried to get her across the bridge. We couldn't get her across the bridge, and she died of a leg infection. When people want to talk about stress, you don't have any idea what stress is unless you've got a little girl in your hands that's dying. and you got a mother that's looking at you, and you swore that you'd get her out, and you couldn't because your own government wouldn't assist you, and the little girl dies of a leg infection. That's stress, brother. And it's needless. Shouldn't happen. And guys, I'll come back, and when this happened, I was pretty upset. And obviously I went dark, and you guys know the rest of the story. I tell people they literally tried to kill me, and I mean that, because they leaked a story out, said I was missing in Afghanistan with a bag of cash. They didn't call my wife first. In fact, they called my communications director. I just got out of a phone desert and got to a populated area, and my phone rings. And she asked me where I was at, and mind you, no one knew where I was at. And I said, none of your business. Not telling anybody where I was at. She said, Markwayne, where are you at? And I said, I'm not telling you, Meredith. What is the deal? And she says, Washington Post, which is a political rag, said you're missing Afghanistan with a bag of cash. And I said, call them back right now and tell them not to run that story. If they run that story, they're going to kill me. They're literally going to put my life and entire life in danger. And she called me back 5 minutes later and said they're running it anyways. They knew it wasn't true, and they ran it anyways. 30 minutes later, I saw my face come across Al Jazeera TV. Not like my official photo where I don't have a beard, but with a beard. I had no official photos of a beard. Now I do. What's the big deal now? Till then I didn't have one, because you can always shave your face and change your appearance real quick. I looked around and I thought, I'm in trouble. We're in serious trouble. 3 days is what it took me to get out. It was tough, but I was bitter. And this is what I want to close with as fast as I can, because I know I went over time. I was bitter. I was mad. I was frustrated. I was that guy. And then I got to thinking, because as soon as I get back, Fox is wanting to do an interview with me. And I was like, that's the last person. I don't mind it, not Fox. I'm just like, I don't want to talk about this. I'm done with it. I'm so fed up. I was so bitter towards our government. I was so bitter towards it. I was so hurt because the people we lost. We lost a lot. That wasn't just some of them. We lost a lot, especially SIVs. And I do a story on Fox, and I was just blunt by it. When I did that story on Fox, I hadn't been in country in 12 hours. I hadn't slept in that time in days. Days, other than just like falling asleep like this. I actually fell asleep standing up trying to get on the plane. That's how I'm not kidding. They grabbed my belt as I went to fall, and they said, you fell asleep standing up? I said, I know, I'm tired. Go figure. You have no idea what I've been through. And I did that interview, and right after I did that interview, my phone started ringing. And even though our government failed us, our administration, let me make that clear, our friend administration failed the American people. The American spirit, I saw a new side of them. We got phone calls from all over the country. They funded the program. It was privately funded from people all over the United States, where we were able to keep that operation going until December 5th, and that's how we got over 300 Americans out. From where we just had a few volunteers. From where we just had a few volunteers, we had literally over 1,000 volunteering for us. But I need special skill sets. I needed people that could do special things. And we ended up having 200 that we started doing rotations with. Because all my guys, not my guys, when I say my guys, I was the least, okay? I didn't do any of this. We had great people that was leading the team. I wasn't leading the team. I was part of the team. So don't think I led anything. I was part of a wonderful team. They were tired too. And I was frustrated, but the American people restored my confidence in this country. The American people was the one that said, we can do better. So when this Senate race came open for us to run for Inhofe's seat, my wife asked me one question. If you're going to be away from our wife and from us and the kids, then where can you make the biggest difference? And without hesitation, I said, the fight's in the Senate. The fight's in the Senate. And I have more fight. You know, we may not be on the exact path that the Lord wants us to be on. But I want to keep in mind as someone that everybody knows the story of is Moses. I believe everything inside of me that Moses still had a calling on his life, but he wasn't exactly where the Lord wanted him to go when he was in the desert and he saw the burning bush. I think the Lord put him in the basket for Pharaoh's daughter to find him because he was going to use that influence to walk the Israelites out. That's what I believe. This is just me speaking. There's nothing biblical. We can all take stories the way we want to, and this is my story, so stay with me. But once you have a calling on your life, it doesn't change. You can make it more difficult to complete that task, but your path doesn't change. Jeremiah 29:11 says that. It's very clear. So I use this analogy that Moses had an easier path, but he let his temper, he let his anger get in his way. When we lose our anger, we lose our path. I wake up every single morning and I say, love the people, love the call. We can all be mighty warriors, but even David prayed for his enemies. We can be bitter and we can be frustrated, but David still loved. I can be a fighter, but I can still love. You can be a fighter and you can still love. I'm never perfect, never claim to be perfect. But my heart, I hope, is pure because I'm always going to fight for our Constitution. I'm always going to fight for the state. Doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect, but that means my fight is true, and I'm true. And so when I ask you to do two things, I'm serious about doing two things. I need you involved. I need you to run for office. Because we think Washington, D.C. is the problem. That means we want Washington, D.C. to solve the issue. If you want Washington, D.C. to solve the issue, you are sadly mistaken. That's the last people you want to solve the issue. We need to solve those issues here in the state. That's why we need people to run for city council, school board, mayors, state offices. Because if they are successful, what they won't be under my watch, I'm going to tell you, we'll fight tooth and nail. They won't be underneath my watch to be able to take our country to a socialist country. We will have a true physical fight before that happens. Yep. But if they are, we still have states' rights, and that fight's going to happen right here in Oklahoma then. And we need leaders to stand up and fight, and we need leaders to run for office. So if you're making an excuse, you're making just an excuse. Really, Moses said he couldn't talk either. Am I lying about this? By the way, I was raised Pentecostal holiness. I didn't get saved till I was 20, though, because I was really a heathen, too. But I say all this because quit making excuses, become a doer. Quit sitting there and complaining about something if you're not willing to do it yourself. I've never asked anybody to do something I'm not willing to do myself. And guys, my family's all in and I'm all in. And we can't win this fight without you. I need every one of your all's help in my election. I need every one of you guys' help. I'm not saying you're going to agree with every decision I've ever made. I promise you won't. My wife doesn't agree with every decision. That's why I'm really good at saying, I'm sorry. But I will tell you one thing. When I mess up, I will admit that I made a mistake. I will own it. I will learn from it. And I'll move on. I've never fired a single employee for making a mistake. I fired them when they won't admit they made a mistake because you're destined to do it again. So you don't got to be perfect. The Lord said you don't got to be perfect. The Lord knows I'm not perfect. I pray every morning when I wake up, Lord, forgive me. And I pray every night before I go to bed, Lord, forgive me. And I don't know how I sin in my sleep, but I know I do. I'm still striving. Is that right, sir? I'm still striving. So you don't got to be perfect. My first political event I ever went to in my life was the one I stood up and said I was running for Congress. That's the first political event I ever went up into my life because I was fed up. All I'm asking you is to show up, trust the Lord, and run. And run. And those that are willing to run, get behind them. Encourage them. I'm thankful for everybody that puts their name on the ballot. But the fight starts in this room. It goes to our churches. It goes to our streets. It goes to our schools. It goes to our cities. And I'm not saying we have to fight with this. Fight with love. Love the people. Love the call. Love the people. Embrace the call. Love the people, love the call. May God bless you, and as always, may God bless the United States of America.